Untamed.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
The Platform.
It's only sport. It's only sport. It's only sport. That's the name of the show. That's the name of this podcast. 1 till 4 on the platform every afternoon. Martin Devlin, Lachlan War. So much sport to squeeze in. It is just about an overflowing fruit basket of topics, events, drama, emotion, and everything attached to it. A wild weekend. We'll try and cram as much as we possibly can into your bowl in the next 45. But as always, we begin this program, tablets in hand. I say gather my flock. It is time for a sermon. What have we learned about sport this weekend? Let's go to the mountaintop.
We live in an amazing, amazing world, and it's wasted on the crappiest generation of just spoiled idiots.
What have we learned over the weekend, people? The All Blacks do have an A team. We now know that for sure. The Warriors can still win when they don't play well. That's how good they are now. The Silver Ferns just struggled to play at all during the World Championships and finished fourth, and that's probably a fair reflection. And the United States are not the best team in world women's football any longer. That was confirmed with a dramatic penalty shootout exit last night to Sweden. The All Blacks did enough, just enough. Second half was excellent. First half, the Wallabies were excellent, that is. Pinned us back in our half, dominated possession, thoroughly deserved the lead and should have, if they'd been more clinical, increased it by increments of 3 points and would have put us away. The All Blacks' second half was dominant, much more like the Melbourne performance. But if only Aussie had have kicked their kickable penalties, we could well be lamenting a shock loss. Good that the squad members got a test match and a run under their belts, but clearly we do have a first-choice selection, and those players need to stay injury-free if we are to advance past the group stage and the quarterfinal and beyond in France. We learned that the Warriors are definitely in the top 6, most likely top 4. That was an Elvis Presley kind of win on Friday night, taking care of business. Get the 2 points, bank it, move on. Not a great performance by any definition, but 4 on the trot with the weakest side, the Tigers, now coming this weekend in Hamilton. We learned that the Silver Ferns were simply shown up in South Africa. Not good enough. Playing strength, I mean. The injury to Grace Nweke cost us dearly. We struggled to score and score freely and fluently. Disappointing, but very real. That's where we're at in world netball right now. The scoreboard doesn't lie. We finished 4th, and you've got to say, given the results, that's where we deserve to finish. Finally, the Americans. That's the USA women's national team have exited the World Cup. This was not meant to happen. This was a team that had won back-to-back tournaments and had been unbeaten at this level for over a decade. Dramatic penalty shootout loss, as I said. They came to the tournament, they turned up, but you got to say they never really played.
Devlin.
What do you want? We want information. Information. You won't get it.
The Platform.
Save the best for last. Lachlan, what are the headlines?
Well, it's a Monday, which means that there's a lot going on, or there was a lot going on the last couple of days. I'll start off with the FIFA Women's World Cup. We're in the knockout phase, which is always an exciting part of any tournament, let alone a FIFA tournament. What have we had so far? Over the weekend, Spain smacking up Switzerland 5-1, Japan beating Norway 3-1, the Netherlands beating South Africa 2-0. Those 3 games all being decided in 90 minutes of football. Last night, though, one of the games of the tournament, it finished 0-0 between Sweden and the United States in Melbourne after 120 minutes of football. They went to penalties. The penalty shootout was incredible. It was one of the most entertaining things I've ever seen. And Sweden, as you sort of mentioned there in your sermon, knocking out the USA, the 2-time defending champions, beating them 5-4 on penalties. There was a moment, really, a stretch of about 3 or 4 penalties that, like, all of them went over the bar or something.
Well, the United States had 2 chances to win it before it went to sudden death. They were up 3-2. If they'd hit the 4th penalty, the Swedes only had 1 left, and that was Rapinoe, hit it over. Sweden came on, they missed theirs. Another chance for the United States to nail it, bang, over it goes again. And then the final penalty hit the post. The margins, as they say.
Exactly. Tonight, 2 more matches going on. England up against Nigeria. That's kicking off at 7:30. Australia co-host. They're up against Denmark at 10:30. And the final 2 round of 16 games will be played tomorrow night. The Netball World Cup. The Silver Ferns had a chance to take home some form of silverware, bronzeware, I guess you'd call it, up against Jamaica in the playoff for bronze. However, being Jamaica, we were always going to be on the back foot because they're just such a good team. Janelle Fowler's incredible. But Jamaica winning 52-45, the Silver Ferns having their equal worst ever their worst. Full stop, their worst ever finish at a Netball World Cup, finishing fourth, Jamaica coming third. In the final, Australia took on England and just smacked them up, 61-45, a 16-goal victory. So order has been restored in the world of netball. Australia are the best team. It's just totally normal. It's what seems to go on all the time with netball. All right, some great news involving one of our female athletes, Elise Andrews, who was a superstar at the Commonwealth Games last year. She's held off a fast-finishing Martha Biona of Colombia to win the World Championships Karen title, while defending champion Leah Friedrich of Germany took home the bronze medal in Glasgow this morning. So a great result for Elise Andrews. Other football results. The Community Shield was on. Arsenal taking on Man City and Arsenal winning 4-1 on penalties in a match that finished 1-1. Does it mean anything? No, it's the Charity Shield. It never really means much ahead of the season. But for the time being, Martin, that is what is making news.
Devlin.
Oh my goodness me!
The platform.
All Blacks, unimpressive in that first half, but pretty damn good in the second half, you've got to say, in Dunedin. Christy Doran from the Roar out of Brisbane. Was that one that got away for the Wallabies, or was it just when the All Blacks put the A-team on, we are superior in every facet of the game?
Oh, look, you've got to say it's one that's got away from the Wallabies, and haven't we seen this script before? I had flashbacks to 2017 to Dunedin when the Wallabies raced out to another 17-0 head start. I recall Izzy Folau running away and scoring tries, and it had that feel to it, didn't it, right from the outset? But, oh, mate, let's be honest, it is a match that slipped through their fingers, and, you know, even at the end, Quade Cooper, huge opportunity with the 4-on-2 overlap, and he spills the ball, and there's the match with the scrum that was under so much pressure when, as you say, a better All Blacks side was coming off the bench, and you compare that to the Wallabies, who were struggling up front, and Sam Whitelock, Jane Coles, the old pros, how good are they?
Yeah, it's a weird one sitting here watching this, because we're picking a squad this afternoon, 33 to go to the World Cup, and your players have got to be interchangeable, but quite clearly they're not.
Yeah, and I think it's also, though, let's be honest, the All Blacks had wrapped up the Bledisloe Cup a week earlier, and there was a moment, and a pivotal moment in the game, and it probably happened at halftime. And it's 17-3, and the All Blacks had been playing out the back. They'd been trying to get on the fringes of the Wallabies. Damien McKenzie probably a bit loose, exposed some of those concerns at 10 there for him going forward. But what did they go back and doing? They started going through the middle of the All Blacks. The Wallabies probably thought more of the same. They're expecting them to go wide still, and yet the All Blacks go through the middle, suck in the numbers. It was just that was a masterclass there from Ian Foster. The calmness, and I think Sonny Williams was touching upon it during commentary, and he just said they'd be calm at halftime, and I think that's exactly what we saw. So that's a huge tick, huge feather in the cap for not only Fozzie and his team, but the side going forward. Finally, they've been placed under some adversity, and they came out with shining colours.
You know, I don't agree it was a choke. I think it was one that got away. And, Christy, I always question under these circumstances, look, if you want to beat the All Blacks, mate, you've got to take every single point available. There are times in that first half where you had a 17-3 lead. And the fact that the All Blacks' first points came off a boot when we had no field territory, no possession or something, we were desperate, we needed to get on the scoreboard. I was screaming at the TV, take the goddamn kick, you losers. Take the kick, you know, because in the end it comes down to 3 points. You probably left a good 6 or 9 easy points out there.
Don't disagree at all. And that was a key moment in the game when Tate McDermott decides to kick for the corner. And clearly, if they score there, McDermott being held up, brilliant covering defence, and Sam Whitelock, Artie Sevilla as well. If they score there, you look like a genius, don't you? And you're the halfback that's there that's done it too. But Test match rugby, it's built around scoreboard pressure, and I thought that showed probably the rugby smarts of New Zealand, their fighting characteristics to be able to stay in the hunt and then seize the moment. In stark contrast, you know, that missed opportunity before half time. They needed to be further up than 17-3 at half time. But you know, Carter Gordon striking the post, and it brings you back to Wellington in 2020 when Reece Hodge I think he's hit the post himself from a long-range effort that would have seen the Wallabies snap their wretched run across the ditch against you guys. So it's a game of small margins, and that's why scoreboard pressure is so crucial.
So, again, we asked this question last week, didn't we? What for Eddie Jones? He can take a hell of a lot from the game, but at the same time, there's still a gap there. Do you have the time, to get this right before the World Cup? And does that result change your expectations at all, or that performance?
Well, the good thing is everyone's got time now, don't they? They've got a month before the World Cup starts. It's pretty much a month to the day before the All Blacks take on France at the start to France. That'll help, and it will see a lot of sides narrow their focus for the Wallabies particularly. Clearly, they've ripped up their game plan under Eddie Jones, and you've seen a number of players ushered in, like Carter Gordon, a change at halfback, crucial changes. I think there is time, but they are so fortunate that they are coming up against Georgia in their first match, and then Fiji. They're coming up against sides that are below them on the World Rugby rankings. And that sounds laughable, but that's the reality. The Wallabies are 8th, and they're not playing a single nation that's above them in the World Rugby standings at the moment. You compare that to the All Blacks, who have been magnificent to start 2023, and their first game, as I've just mentioned, is against France. New Zealand don't have the time to get it right. The Wallabies do. And if you take on Portugal in your last game before a quarter-final, it allows you a bit of a runway to, hopefully, from an Australian perspective, get some momentum. That's what Eddie Jones would have looked at before taking on the Wallabies coaching responsibilities. And that's probably one of the few things that the Wallabies have, and they're probably telling themselves, is, look, we've got a chance here. We've got a chance here. You've just got to get into a quarter-final, and then you're taking on England, who lost to Wales, who have been a rabble over the last 12 months. That's a very winnable quarterfinal.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full. Moan. I'm
moaning
sick
all
of
the
it.
time.
NPC Rugby. I want to moan about NPC Rugby. Now, let's make this next point loud and very clear. I love NPC Rugby. I don't like what it's become, the non-existent place that it now seems to have in the sport in this country. Could the comp be any more low-key if it tried? I don't see how. What used to be called the world's best provincial rugby competition, is now a glorified club rugby runaround. Were you even aware it was on? Over the weekend, 8 matches were played to virtually no one watching. It was launched on the weekend. Did you even know? And look, of course, the Women's FIFA World Cup's going on at the moment. And yes, the All Blacks were playing in Dunedin. And yes, the All Blacks World Cup squad is being announced this afternoon at 5 o'clock. But that's exactly my point. Could the timing have been any worse? No. Well, why start it when there's so much other stuff going on, when it so obviously was going to fly under the radar like it has? Is that what the comp is these days? A bit part-time, unsung, virtually unnoticed sidebar sport? Because that was the lowest of low-key launches that NPC Rugby has ever had. And this, for what is meant to be the premium domestic competition in New Zealand sport. It's pretty sad.
Devlin.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
The platform.
The Silver Ferns are 4th in the world. That doesn't sound good, does it? Defending world champions went to South Africa. Such high hopes. But in the end, that's what the results tell us where we are. Former world champion herself and champion coach Yvonne Willering joins us. Were the Aussies the best team in the world again?
Yep, absolutely. I really actually enjoyed the final game. And you have a look, like when they had the loss against England by 1 goal in the second round of the competition, you could see they are wounded Australian, man. They're going to come back strong. And they certainly did that. But the final wasn't what you'd call a typical final, because actually both teams really played with depth. Like they let the ball go on attack. They took long shots, and certainly there were intercepts to be taken as well. Very heavy penalty count, but that's also to be expected. But, what I liked about Australia, though, rather than just sort of subbing an individual, they had what you'd call set groups of players, set combinations. Like initially they started in the shooting circle with Conan and Wood, and that's a very experienced pairing. They play in lightning together, so they know each other well. Australia was doing pretty well, and then suddenly you get the switch, and Garvin and Austin take the court, and they just carried on where Conan and Wood left off. And certainly, that you could see they were there for business, and they were there to win the competition.
Yvonne Willering is with us, world champion player, champion coach for the Silver Ferns. It was fourth, a good reflection in the end, or a fair reflection on where the Silver Ferns were at this tournament?
See, now I have to be honest here and say, yeah, it probably was. If you saw the way that the games were panning out, and the first 4 games, they were always going to be relatively easy games. And then I heard Dame Noeline Taurua say, we still haven't got a settled. She calls it a spine, but it's a set combination there. And she was using those earlier rounds to determine that. But those games were totally different than the next year when we played the South Africans and the Jamaicans. It was a totally different setup. And so, really, yet the Ferns never had what you'd call a stable lineup in the situation. And there was always that second half, or particularly that last quarter, collapse. They talked about it after every game, but the corrections were never made. And when you saw that after the second game, you're thinking, what's going on here? And on attack, I thought defensively they did quite well. I think because of their space marking, they managed to get intercepts. But attacking play, that was disappointing in the fact that I know the mid-court players are being blamed, but it's really hard to feed an in-circle combination that is quite static. And when we had Wilson and Ignacio in there, they did a lot of short, what I call interplay passes. They bodied up on the defender, and it actually made it really difficult for those mid-court players to feed them. And you could tell that because Selby Ricketts came onto the court for a quarter, I think, and I thought she made quite a difference, and she opened up the circle. But, there was lots of changes made, and I guess there was no stability and no one combination actually took to the task at hand.
Look, it's been a difficult tournament, I got to admit, to be involved with, because there's so much other sport going on at the moment.
I know.
In the middle of the night as well. So, to brave this and to be up for 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. as you were, I mean, thank you so much for your time. We've got 4 teams now in World Netball, haven't we, who are absolutely competitive. Is this the first time you've seen where you could pretty much throw a blanket over all 4?
Absolutely. And what's interesting, pre-World Champs, and I'm even guilty of this one, when we predicted as to who was going to be in the final, who was going to be in the top, no one, I don't believe anyone expected it to be an England-Australian final. And I definitely had Jamaica up there. So, for World Netball, absolutely this is great, because we used to always have an Australian-New Zealand final. So now suddenly there's a bit more respect for us, for other countries involved, for Jamaica, obviously, and England as well, to be involved in this whole setup. And it was interesting after the final game was played, and obviously, Australia were beside themselves, and rightly so. They've had limited preparation time, one because of Suncorp, and they've had issues as well, so for them to come out the way they did, play in the game they did, because they won, 61-45, they were ecstatic. But if you look at the England bench, you actually would think that they had won the gold medal, because they also were just wrapped on it, because that's the first time they had ever been in a grand final, and what an experience that was for them. So hopefully from them, everyone learns from it. Although, having said that, appreciate there's going to be retirement of players, and that always happens after World Championships. Even in the Silver Ferns team, there'll be some retirement. So it's like the start, a new start for the new campaign. But I'd like to think that all these teams learn from this and continue in their growth of their netball, not just at the elite level, but also at the tier further down, to bring these players through. But absolutely brilliant for World Netball.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full.
Next!
Has this Women's World Cup been as good as you thought it was, or is it better than you thought it would be?
That's a good question, because I would say it's been better, not because I didn't think it would be good, but I won't lie, it just sort of crept up on me a little bit. because it's not a sport. I mean, women's football, with all truthfully, it's just not something I typically follow that closely.
And that's okay. And it's all right. It's also okay, ladies and gentlemen, to admit this out loud. We're allowed to say this.
So it crept up on me a bit. But no, I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I think it's been awesome.
Okay.
Next!
Are you glad that the football Ferns got knocked out when they did? Given that if we'd made it through to the round of 16, we probably would have got smashed by either Spain or Japan or what? Because Spain beat Switzerland 5-1. Japan was so comfortable over Norway 3-1, and the Norwegians fired one shot at goal. So in the end, probably a dumb question because it's hypothetical and it didn't happen. But
you hate hypotheticals.
I do.
Of all people.
But if we'd got through.
Well, we would have lost in the first. We would have lost in the round of 16.
Yeah, we
without
would
a
have.
doubt. So, no, because it still would have been great to get through, and anyone with a brain would know that once we got to the round of 16, no, we're probably not getting past it because that in itself is an incredible achievement.
See, I just would have died at the fawning, sycophantic, gushy, ridiculous mass media coverage that would have resulted from it, and it would have put me off watching the game probably. Whereas I need to get over myself and think, well, it doesn't really matter what you dickheads in newsrooms think. The reality of it is the football Ferns weren't good enough.
Next!
We finished where we finished. Is anyone out there crying for the United States in world football?
Probably the US.
Yeah.
Probably their bandwagon fans.
Yeah, and look, and this is a team that came with high expectations, very disappointing for them. But in terms of the tournament, good or bad that they're out, or does it really matter?
No, I'm always a bit of a believer that you need your big guns, your big name players, and your big name teams, if that makes sense, to be there or thereabouts when it comes to quarterfinals, semi-finals. When it comes to the likes of the World Cup, or it comes to things like the NFL or the NBA, because it helps for the casual fans. But I think actually football in the World Cup, no, I don't think people are missing them because you've got some really great... Look, the thing about women's football, I don't think it's like men's football. Like, you like the big name teams. You like Brazil, you like Germany, you like England and France and Italy, those big name countries. I think with women's football, it's a lot different. Like, Japan are one of the best teams in the world. You know, Jamaica and South Africa got through to the knockout phases at the expense of Italy and Brazil. Germany didn't get through. So
Argentina didn't.
There are these so-called footballing minnows, at least in the men's football context, that are doing really, really well. So I actually don't think you need a big name like the USA to keep people interested in the tournament.
Next!
How do you take a penalty in a penalty shootout?
You welly it hard and aim for one of the bottom corners.
There you go.
That's what you do.
It's not that difficult, is it?
And you've got to know what you're doing before you get to the spot.
Yeah.
You can't second guess when you're up there.
Side footing, always a risk because it's natural with the side foot to lean back. You taught this as a kid. And when you lean back, where's the ball going?
Why?
It's going over the bar. That's where it's going, okay?
Next!
And anyone, don't dare do a Panenka.
Well, that's the one where you walk up and you try to do the cheeky little chip down the middle.
I tell you what,
like
those
such a
infuriate
twat
me
if you do.
And you know what's worse?
Yes!
When it gets done to you on FIFA, that's even worse.
After the test against the Wallabies and Dunedin, does that leave you more or less confident about the All Blacks' chances at the Rugby World Cup?
I'm not. That doesn't change anything.
Doesn't change it?
I still feel pretty comfortable with where we're at. Because we didn't play our best team. We played our B team with a couple of A-teamers starting. And the thing that actually would give people a lot more comfort would be that our key playmakers in Aaron Smith and Richie Mwanga and a few others came on the second half and turned the tide for us.
Controlled the game, didn't they?
Next!
So let's put our Australian hats on. Would that performance against the All Blacks in Dunedin leave you feeling less or more confident of your chances at the Rugby World Cup if you're Australia?
More, because the difference with the way the Wallabies played in the first half when you compare to how they played their good patches in Melbourne is that they didn't finish off their possession, their territory. They couldn't convert their chances, whereas against the All Blacks over the weekend, they did. Now, you could argue when Tate McDermott went over the line and was held up by Ardie Savia, and then I think there were moments where
it was actually, give Whitelock credit for the first tackle.
He turned him on his back
and Savia just jumped on it.
Yeah. And there was a couple of moments where they kicked penalties where you could argue, well, maybe, you got momentum, maybe have a crack and try and get a try here. But they looked real slick in that first half, I thought, the Wallabies. But was that because we had our B team on? I don't know. Because, I'm not too sure.
Similar question can be asked in the Northern Hemisphere. What do we read, if anything, into the results of Wales beating England?
Was it both teams putting out pretty much their best teams?
Nein und han was?
That's no and something.
Do we read anything into Scotland coming back from
because France didn't have their best team.
Okay, so there's a little bit of shadow boxing going on there. Chris Jones will join us tomorrow because we need that expert eye out from the Northern Hemisphere. I'm obsessed with how those teams are playing, and I don't know what to read into those results. We didn't have time to do it today. We'll get Chris on tomorrow. We've also got Justin on tomorrow. We've also got Mex on tomorrow. We'll do a lot more on the rugby.
Next!
Should the Wallabies have kicked those penalties in the first half? They were up 17-3. They had gimmies. They went for the corner a couple of times. When you're playing the All Blacks, my philosophy is always the same. You keep scoring points, and you keep scoring points, and every time you get a chance to score points, you get points. The first points that we took in that game were what?
It was a penalty.
We were down 14-0. We had no ball, no territory. We kicked 3, right?
Yep.
To get ourselves into the game on the board, have a bit of a breather, lads, get the ball back. There was certainly one at 17-3 where I was sitting there going, come on, take the 3, Aussie. If you want to win this game, take the 3. Because then what you're doing is you're putting 3 scores between us and them. Now, when it's 2 scores, Lachlan, get a converted try, we're back in it. When it's 3 scores, you have to chance your arm. And that changes the mentality of the way that we play. I thought that was dumb from the Wallabies. Dumb. You don't beat the All Blacks by thinking you're going to score 9 tries against us. It's not going to happen.
Yes,
not
but
you,
at the
Australia.
same time, I really don't think there is much safety in 14 points versus 17 points. I really don't.
Well,
especially at that point of the game when you're a team like the Wallabies and you know that you are outmatched, like horrendously outmatched by this All Blacks team when they're on their A game, and they would have seen the bench and gone, okay, well, in the second half they'll freshen up.
Well,
and bring
17-3 became 17-10, so we go into half-time needing a converted try. And
what was the final score?
3 points.
Yeah.
Separated.
Well, but my point is...
right.
No, my
point is that I'm clearly right. The point is you were wrong. The point is that if they kicked that, they would have got a result.
Whether it's a penalty or going for it, like I actually, if anything, would encourage them to go for a try. When you've got momentum and you've got your foot on the throat, you keep going. I think settling for 3. Now, if it was a tight game or if the All Blacks had a lot of the momentum in that first half, I'd say, no, take the points. They didn't. They were all over us in the first half.
That's
No, I don't
That's
agree.
why you lose. Do you take Brodie Retallick if he's injured?
Yes.
Do you name... Really?
Because, well, how long
We took him injured. We took him injured, remember, to Tokyo.
Yeah, but this is a knee injury. This is different. So how long is he going to be sidelined for? Because, okay.
We don't know.
It is the
We probably won't
7th
be
of
problem.
August. We are a month and 1 day away. We're 31 days away from the tournament kicking off. 31
Lord,
days
really?
is 4.5 weeks,
Okay.
right?
And we can actually afford to
quarterfinal-
keep him in cotton wool till October the 7th.
So the quarterfinal that they'll play in the quarterfinals
He's
are the
gonna go down
14th and the
to Gala.
15th, right? That's over 2 months away.
Yeah,
that means that
same
is
situation
about 8 to
in
10
Tokyo.
weeks.
Same situation. In the end, it looked to me at the semi-final like he would just needed another week or two, another game.
It all depends on the window. I mean, 8 to 10 weeks away is the semi-final, quarterfinals.
NRL over the weekend. We've almost got the top 8 sorted, haven't we? No, we have not. There's 3 or 4 weeks to go, and still a cluster of 7 or 8 teams that potentially can make the finals. The Warriors, though, it is a home semi. It's just where we finish. Brendan Bradford, CodeSports AU, with his thoughts. Wah-wahs, are we concrete into the top 4 as of now?
Oh, I've been a Warriors fan for too long to say that we can cement it, but it's so close. It's so close. And the draw is pretty favourable for the Warriors. Tigers this week, and I think Dolphins at some point over the next couple of weeks. Oh, I'm going to go ahead and say yes. I'm not touching wood. I'm not trying to jinx it, but it's just a good team, and I think they're going to finish top 4.
Can we say in concrete the Tigers are the Spooners?
Surely we can. Yeah, they're 4 points behind the Dragons. They'll lose this weekend in Hamilton. I think the Tigers are locked in for the wooden spoon. They've looked like the worst team. They're well off the pace. They've got 3 wins for the year. Lock in the Tigers, despite the Dragons' best efforts.
Top 2 are going to be the Panthers and the Broncos, yes?
Spot on, yeah. Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if these 2 play in the grand final. It would be a tremendous match. I think it's, as much as you want the Warriors to get there, I think Panthers and Broncos have been the 2 outstanding teams of the year, and you want a grand final that befits such a great season. And I think those 2 teams are the best performing. They're playing probably the best rugby league. Certainly the Broncos are. And that just the storyline of the Panthers trying to go for 3 in a row, the Broncos trying to topple them after being sort of down in the dumps not too long ago. I think that's a really interesting way to end the season.
Brendan Bradford is with us from CodeSports AU out of Oz. We talk league every Monday, and I like you to make sense of everything that is in front of me here. The Roosters beat the Seagulls. They were pretty damn impressive. The Sharks beat the Rabbitohs, likewise. But I still don't trust either of those two teams, the Roosters and the Sharks, are either going to be still in the 8 by the end of the season.
The Sharks, possibly. I think the Sharks have a little bit more going for them. The Roosters... it's actually simpler for the Roosters. I mean, they just need to win and just hope for the best and put out some good vibes and hope results go their way. The Sharks, they can have maybe 1 or 2 more slip-ups, probably just 1, actually. They need to keep on top of things. A win over the Rabbitohs is certainly good news for their fans, but I'm pretty close to putting a line through the Roosters. I think there's just too many, they need to win by this many points and then hope that the Cowboys and Seagulls lose to whoever. And I think it's just a step too far for the Roosters. And even if they make it, like you say, I don't trust them. I don't think they've been playing that well. I don't think they'll be, they shouldn't figure at the end of the season. The Sharks, who knows? Who knows with the Sharks? Like, they go around and beat the Rabbitohs like that, but they haven't beaten the top 8 side. I don't know, is it, one of those ones, if they make it, is it even worth them having them in the finals? They haven't barely fired a shot against any of those other top 8 teams. So I think the Eels or the Cowboys, if they can put together a couple of wins, I think they might give a bit of crack come September.
Are you prepared to say the Knights are a lock? They have made the 8.
No. And the reason I'm not willing to say it is the Knights are on 27 points and the Rabbitohs, Eels and Cowboys are all on 26, but all those 3 teams have a bye in hand, so they'll all leapfrog the Knights. Well, they're all 1 point above the Knights. I think there's still a bit of work to go for the Newcastle Knights, although on form and momentum, they're probably them, the Warriors, Panthers, Broncos less so because they've been pretty dominant this year, but they're the form momentum side coming into the final. So I think they will get there, but I'm not willing to tell anyone to go and put their hard-earned on it yet. I'm not willing to put it in cement yet.
Eels and Cowboys then. Pick one that will make it, pick one that won't.
That's a good question. Oh, that's a good question. I'm going to go with the Eels.
Ooh.
Purely because I feel like I've almost backed myself into the corner, because this whole season, when they started so badly, I've been saying all year, the Eels will come good, the Eels will come good. They're too good not to play finals football, and I will stick with that line of thinking. Look, I could easily sit here and probably come up with an argument for the Cowboys, but I'm sticking with the Eels. I'm sticking with the Eels.
Storm versus Raiders this week. Does the winner of that take the final top 4 spot? Let's just presume the top 2 are done. Let's hope for the Warriors. To the Storm, the Raiders, the winner of that. Is that the other one in the 4?
Yeah, certainly looks like it. The winner of that will go to 32 points, and the Sharks are next on 28, and then obviously the other team will be on 30. So it looks that way, and it certainly looks that way, that the Storm and the Raiders are going to vie for that last top 4 spot. And it's just another example of why this season is so great, that you just have these 2 teams locked 4th and 5th, but locked on points, playing each other this close to the end of the season for a place in the top 4. It's just, I say it every week, this is the best season I can remember. And there's going to be other games like this as well over the next couple of weeks, with teams trying to make it into the top 8 and drop out and things like that. So it's, certainly those 2 teams, one of them will be in the top 4.
Always positive, our man out of Twizel. LBP with TMG. Let's be positive with Twizel's Matt Gunn. How to be positive as a Wallabies fan after that? Oh, that's right. Eddie Jones says now, on that evidence, they can still win the World Cup. Why the hell, mate? I mean, I know this is not being positive to start with, but why the hell didn't you kick your penalties against us, you dummies, down in Dunedin? You did that, you would have won that test match.
I don't know if we watched the same game, Martin, but clearly we have elevated ourselves to the status of almost World Cup favourites on the first 40-minute performance, and that is 20 minutes better than the 20 minutes we gave in the first game. So we have doubled our output in just a week, and I think, and if you really think about it, when we took on the All Blacks B team, if you get heaps of injuries, we'll be unbeatable at the World Cup.
So hang on, you played 20 great minutes in Melbourne. You played pretty much 40 good minutes. So I'm just working this out. It's another couple of games. By the time you actually get to France, you might be able to put 80 together.
I reckon we can. By the time we make the final, the Rugby World Cup final, we'll be ready for a full game. Now, I know that is absolutely being as positive as possible. We needed about 3 more tries in the first half.
Yeah.
And then things just changed, didn't they? You know, All Blacks made some changes. Next thing you know, we're being penalised every second play. We can't keep our hands on the ball. We're turning it over at every opportunity. But that first 40 was magnificent. It was just enjoyable. But I knew what was coming. I watched it with the wife. I kept saying to her, we need another 2 or 3 here for sure. Can we score? Can we score? She's like, you know it's over already. I said, yes, I know. So I had some sausage rolls at half-time and sucked up the second 40.
Yeah, well,
it was a pretty good game all round.
It was a great game, and you just knew Mwanga was going to kick that final goal. But by the time that the All Blacks had changed the team around, I mean, the good thing for us is that, okay, well, look, we gave a few guys a run and also realised that we have about 20 to 23 players, and we've got to keep these guys fit if we want to win a World Cup, because the guys that replace those guys aren't as good as those guys. I mean, and that's the reality of it.
No, that was pretty clear.
Yeah,
that was pretty
very clear.
And I thought a magnificent move by the rugby unions to play a day game under a roof in Dunedin. I thought there could be no better place to play a day game than Dunedin in the middle of winter under a roof. Absolutely perfect.
Yeah, genius.
And the other thing is the ground was so hard. The commentators were fascinated with the way that they'd cut the grass so short for the Football World Cup that there was literally no grass. We thought they must have just sprayed it all green.
Let's finish with the Women's World Cup. And is anyone shedding a tear? For those that shed a tear last night from the United States women's national team as they missed penalties, blew opportunities in that shootout. They had a couple of times where they could have actually just stroked it into the net and walked into the quarterfinals, and they didn't. This is a team that I feel has come with reputation, a large degree of self-belief, bordering on arrogance, and probably a veteran team that really should have cleaned itself out if they actually wanted to win this tournament. I've got no empathy at all for them. I think, goodbye, you're tired, you're gone, and welcome the new breed that beat you.
Yeah, it feels a little bit like the hype surrounding the team and their current status, because they're all being paid an absolute fortune. A lot of these ladies have now decided that they're political commentators and they need to take the stage outside sport. And I think that's come back to bite them. And I think that's why no one outside of the US is concerned whatsoever. They've even been criticised by former players for the way they celebrated even making the round of 16. And then what happens? The most painful finish you could even imagine. The VAR on that final winning penalty, I just couldn't have delighted in that more. Wasn't it just absolutely magnificent? Could you have lost by less?
No.
Not really.
No, look, an A4 paper would not have squeezed between the ball and the line. There was barely a blade of grass. That is technology, ladies and gentlemen, and you wouldn't have determined that by the naked eye.
No, I don't think you could have. The speed of it, you'd need all the angles absolutely perfect, and still you'd have to make a call that could become pretty unpopular. But for it to be so painfully close to not being in, yet being in, we all celebrate. The US, they don't celebrate. And we can get on with the tournament and see some good more football.
Australia, Matildas versus Denmark tonight. You've got to be looking at it now going, here we go. It's ours.
The questions. Will they just sit back and defend and allow Australia to try and attack and put the pressure on their attack? Will Sam Kerr actually run on, or will she only come on if needed later on? They say she's fit, but is she? Is she 100% fit with no match play? Martin, this is going to be a magnificent game tonight. I can't wait for it. I will be there. Do we beat Denmark? We are favourites, $1.80 favourites on the TAB. Denmark, $4.33. We should win. We should win. and I do not dare say anything other than we should.
That's our podcast for today. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to listen to the entire show, 1 till 4, Monday to Friday, download the Platform app, and via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to whatever shows over however many weeks at your leisure, at your listening pleasure. Platform Plus. First thing to do, though, is download the Platform app.
Devlin.
Unbelievable! Incredible!
The Platform.